We'd like to call this evening's meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. Welcome Joe Deacon and his listening audience at WCBU as well as Cable Channel 22. Madam Clerk, the council microphones are open for roll call.
Yes.
Here.
Councilmember Ali.
Present.
Councilmember Sear. Councilmember Grab. Councilmember Jensen.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Montalongo.
Here.
Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Euler.
Here.
And Councilmember Ruckriegel.
Present.
You have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a couple little housekeeping things before we start. In accordance with Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2020-07, as amended and extended, which limits meetings to the lesser of 25 persons or 25% of the overall room capacity, with the exception of individuals with proof of full vaccination plus 14 days or a negative COVID-19 test 1 to 3 days prior to the meeting, who do not count against capacity limits, and requiring the provision of video, audio, or telephonic access to meetings, as well as CDC recommending social distancing of at least 6 feet between persons. City Hall is implementing changes and restrictions for the City Council meeting on April 27th, 2021, while complying with the spirit of the Open Meetings Act. The council meeting will be held in person in City Council chambers. There is a room capacity restriction, which would result in a wait to enter if met. Temperature screenings and face coverings are required for access inside City Hall. Members of the public and media are invited to watch through the live stream on the City of Peoria's website, YouTube, local TV channel 22, or listen through WCBU radio. While public comment is available in person, the option to submit comments through the city clerk's office due to room capacity restrictions was available, as well as any submissions will be read into the council record. The agenda, minutes, and video podcast of the meeting will be available online through the city's website. Secondly, notice was received by a member of the City Council in accordance with the rules established in ordinance number 16142, and the member will be deemed authorized to attend the meeting electronically unless a motion objecting to the member's electronic attendance is made, seconded, and approved by 2/3 of the members of the City Council physically present at the meeting. If no such motion is made and seconded, then the request by the member to attend electronically shall be deemed approved by the City Council and the presiding officer, and shall declare the requesting member present. Councilmember Riggenbach has requested the ability to attend electronically, and seeing no objections from the council, we will consider Councilman Riggenbach here. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to join us and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I would ask everyone to please keep Representative Gordon Booth and her family in your prayers. Her father passed this past week, and we know it's a tough time on her and her family, so I'd ask for special thoughts and prayers for Representative Gordon Booth. We have one proclamation this evening, and I believe our Public Works Director is with us. I don't know if the Assistant Director is coming in or... Okay. You're welcome to take the podium, sir, if you'd like. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they're planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Jim Ardis, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, do hereby proclaim April the 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in Peoria. Our Public Works Director, Rick Powers, is here, along with the Associate Director, Cy Maroon. Welcome, gentlemen.
Counselor. It's just my distinct honor to be here, obviously, in representing this department. I'm going to talk at a very high level as to what our future holds, because it being Arbor Day, again, I will remind you, we recently entered into a consent decree, which represents this city going forward in a green infrastructure commitment, which will involve a great number of trees and complete streets and a number of things that benefit the environment throughout this city and eliminate those discharges. Although not directly related to Arbor Day, I believe they are, because I believe trees will be a part of those plantings. So with that said, I celebrate with the department, with the city, with all of you. Mayor, obviously with you. I'm going to see you the last time I'd call you Mayor for life, because you always will be. And Mayor-elect, congratulations. And again, thanks to everyone. As I said when I met all of you, the thunder doesn't steal the lightning, and he's standing behind me. And he actually has a celebration coming up with a tree planting. So if I may, I'd like to pass the mic to Cy Maroon, our Deputy Director of Operations.
First of all, I want to say thank you, Mayor and Council, for doing this. Once again, we seem to come here annually for this proclamation, but I think it's important every year to remind our citizens and our community what we're doing. This is not just Public Works. This is the Park District. This is generated by the South Dash West. I'm drawing a blank.
South Dash West.
Kiwanis Club, yes. So anyway, annually they donate a tree, and that's where this is going. Okay, so we're partnering with the Park District as well, because that's the location where these trees have been going for about the last handful of years. We've been taking down the dead trees down there along the riverfront, and we're planting a new tree, which is the Royal Raindrop crab tree, the flowering crab. So again, this is done annually. It's a community-wide event to show the community our commitment to trees, to the benefits of trees, to the environment, especially along the riverfront, which is continuously seeming to grow and grow with people. So we're excited about that. This Friday at 10 a.m. at Constitution Gardens, we're going to have the tree planting. That goes right along with the plantings that we do within Public Works twice a year in the spring and in the fall. But this is just a special event that happens every year. So we are looking forward to anybody that wants to come down. We'll be social distancing. We'll be outside. It'll be a great event to participate with, just to mingle with the people that are down there, those folks that are committed to this community, and they're the ones that should really get this credit. Honestly, they are the ones that come to us every year, and they're committed to doing what we're doing, and we just enjoy being a partner. We just enjoy being a part of the operation of the upkeep of the city. So thank you for your time. Like I said, 10 a.m. Constitution Garden at the foot of Morton Street, and we're looking for a great day. In addition to that, Arbor Day, we're tying in our free mulch giveaway. Everyone needs to know about that. We're doing a free mulch giveaway on Saturday morning from 8 to 1. People can come out. We'll load their trucks and trailers. We got a hand loading station if they want to load it into their cars or totes. So it's just a good tie-in. We're planting a tree, but we're also doing some great things with our mulch, which is what everybody looks forward to this time of the year. So thanks again, and have a great evening.
Director, I need you to, or Assistant Director, I need you to raise your right hand for just a second. Doesn't look like you're going to be planting many trees.
I know. No, trees, yard work, it's kind of out of the, I'm chomping at the bit to get in the yard, and I can't do it. But a few more weeks of this, hopefully, and hopefully it's back.
Just don't rush it. We need you around here.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Ruckrigo.
I move to approve the minutes of the joint city council and town board meeting held on April 13th, 2021 as printed.
Seconded by Councilmember Greb. Any corrections or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Riggenbach.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
We're at a first reading. 21-104 is a request to concur with the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to receive and file a first reading of an ordinance amending Appendix A, the Unified Development Code relating to signs, menu boards.
Director Black.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a relatively minor item related to signs, specifically to menu boards. Basically, what it does is it proposes that the size, the face size of a menu board would be increased from 30 square feet to 40 square feet, and the allowable height would be increased from 5 feet to 6 feet. This is primarily from requests that we've received from drive-through restaurant owners, and basically there's a few things in work here where it's a case of the regulations catching up with the industry. Part one is that there are more items available in drive-through lines than there were 20 years ago when these regulations were put in place. There are more images and more information on these signs. And then the third part is that vehicles are taller than they were. More people driving SUVs and minivans really makes it difficult if you have a menu board that you have to peer out the side of your car to get to. So that's what this is.
Thank you. Any corrections or, any questions of Director Black or staff for the first reading? Okay. I'm seeing none. We'd take a motion to receive and file. Councilmember Ali, seconded Councilmember Euler. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Riggenbach.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
We're at regular business. 21-105 is a request to approve a declaration of local state of emergency.
Councilmember Greb.
Mr. Chairman, on the declaration of local state of emergency, I move to approve.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Councilmember Moore. Is there discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Riggenbach.
Aye.
The motion passes with 10 ayes, 1 no. Councilmember Montalongo. Madam Clerk.
21-106 is a request to adopt an ordinance amending the City of Peoria 2021 revised annual budget relating to the general fund in the amount of $75,000 for the expansion and improvement of Peoria Cares call management.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, you want to summarize this for us, please?
Thank you. As the council communication outlines, we are currently going to be seeing one of our admins in county or city administration is going to be leaving. So we have been working with AMT to look at taking over Peoria Cares and answering all of our basically 311 calls, the Peoria Cares calls that come in. In discussions with AMT, they currently operate 211 throughout the community where they're answering calls for nonprofit groups and for people that are in need of social service assistance. They have agreed to provide the service for us from 8 in the morning until 6 p.m. And then on Saturdays from 9 to 1. So it expands our coverage at the price of $25 an hour. So the total cost for this would be just under $75,000. And that's what we're asking for your support this evening for, is to approve that contract with AMT, and we'll move the Peoria Cares calls into the 211 center.
Thank you. Questions for the manager on this item? Councilmember Grab.
Manager, I feel that the equivalency of Peoria Cares now proposed in this format is a good thing for our citizens. It gives them an opportunity to register concerns and complaints. I think the very important question that must be asked is, will we continue to get, as governing body of the city, reports on what the content of these calls are, so we can do a content analysis to see where we're falling down, where our weaknesses are, as we did before, get those monthly reports?
Absolutely. We'll continue with that regard.
They have agreed to do this, is
Yes.
that correct?
That is correct.
Part of the memo that mentions the Peoria Cares line being disruptive to staff, I don't think that's something that we should say. I think it's a disturbance now in the sense that we are very short-staffed, and we don't have the ability to do it the way we should, but it is absolutely essential when people see a pothole or a street light out or whatever, that they have a number that they can call. Not that the council people mind being called, but that we have a hotline, as it were, for this to be taken care of. Years ago, we didn't have this. And I think we had Peter Korn as the city manager, and we helped bring this forward. And it's been operating very well for quite some time. I look at that report carefully because it tells us where we're falling down, where our constituents see problems. And I see a lot of streetlight reports, and I see a lot of pothole reports. I don't see too much by way of drug houses or things of that sort. People are not using it so much for that. But we do need to consider this not to be disruptive to our operation. If anything, it should help elevate our operation so that the policymakers can be sure we're better addressing the concerns of the city. And I know it seems like a lot of money, but $25 per hour, does that seem like a good buy to you?
I'm ecstatic with the contract that we've negotiated.
And I like the fact that there's an expansion in coverage so they can even call on Saturday. So I think this is a winner overall, and I appreciate your bringing this forward.
Thank you.
I had Councilmember Riggenbach next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Manager, and those responsible for thinking outside the box here and bringing this forward. I think we all see the value, and we've all experienced the value of what Peoria Care brings to our constituents and the residents of the city. So to be able to actually expand the hours of coverage on this, to have a dedicated full-time person again, I think this is going to be a real win for all of us here, and I heartily support this and would move for the approval.
Motion to approve, seconded Councilmember Graham. We have additional discussion. Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Although I am very supportive of expanding and improving the Peoria Cares program, I'm questioning, I support hiring a full-time person in-house. I'm questioning why we're contracting this out.
Well, the main reason for that is that we're going to get more hours of coverage than if we had our own staff person. If we hired our own staff person full-time to do this work, for the number of hours that we're going to cover over the course of an entire year, we would need to hire 2 staff people to do that. So that we're getting that level of coverage with this contract.
Okay, and then another question I have is, if we are going to do this, don't we have to approve a contract with AMT? It's not really coming to us in this format. This is just for a budget amendment.
This is the budget amendment. We can certainly bring the contract back for council so you can see what it formally outlines with that. So
I'm not comfortable supporting a budget amendment until I guess I see the contract. I do think we should have a full-time person doing this, but I would prefer to have it in-house. Now, I understand now the cost savings, so I still have questions about that. I know we do a lot of work with AMT. They're our biggest contract, I think, for ambulance services. So I just would prefer having it come and being completely transparent with what we're considering for it to be in that format. So I'm not sure I can support this tonight. Thank you.
Okay, I have Councilmember Montalongo next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. City Manager, just kind of reading through this, and I agree with a lot of the comments that Councilwoman Jensen made. Have we looked at other options as well? And is there a reason why we've not gone out to bid on this?
absolutely. I think that AMT provides the expertise with the 211 system in the community right now, and we felt that this was the best and most expeditious manner for us to move this forward when we know that in the middle of next month we're going to be losing a staff person in city administration.
As far as any other companies that could be doing this type of service, have you checked into that?
No, not at the $25 per hour price. We felt that this was a very significant cost savings for the city, and that's the reason why we wanted to go forward with this.
Okay, I probably won't be supporting this tonight, just for the fact that we don't have a number of companies bidding on this. Thank you.
Okay, I have Councilmember Ali next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, what is the length of the contract?
At this point in time, I'll ask Assistant City Manager Deborah Rattler to come to the microphone to talk about that in terms of the discussion. She's been leading the negotiations with AMT.
Okay.
So we do not have a written contract. We have a rate agreement. We have an hours agreement. We have reviewed the process with them. We have a process development. We had a conversation around what it would take to establish and develop the process, and we still need to investigate, though it wouldn't be their cost, the integration point on site.
So what are you looking at in terms of the length of time? I'm sure you have something in mind in terms of the length of time of the contract.
At this point in time, I would expect something that would have a fairly standard exit clause, such as a 30-day exit option for either party.
So you're saying that there would not be a time limit? There would just be there wouldn't be like a 5-year or 10-year agreement. It would just be open-ended with a 30-day term?
That was what I was expecting. I'm happy to take direction.
I think it would be important to see a draft of a contract in order to move forward with a vote on this. I don't think that's unreasonable to request so that we have more detail in terms of what we're looking at.
Absolutely. And if there is any direction on wanting certain limitations or similar on the parameters of the agreement, I'd love to hear it from council.
Sure, I would move for a deferral on this until we can get some additional information.
We have a motion and a second on a 2-week. Do you want to do that? Can you get that by the next meeting? Okay.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Well, the next meeting's next week, so 2 weeks. Okay. 2-week deferral, and seconded by Councilmember Jensen. So the discussion now would be on the deferral. Councilman Grabe.
With the deferral, which I'll support, is it possible for me to ask for something to come back when it comes back that I haven't touched on?
I don't think we want to get a huge discussion going in here, but if it's some information that you need to be part of that, I don't see any problem with that.
Manager, there will be logistical issues. We would instruct our constituents if this passes. We're moving on a deferral. But when it comes back, we're going to need to know what the instruction would be for our constituents. They would no longer call 494-CARE. They'd be calling what number and so on and so forth. And I'd like to know also what kind of training we're going to ensure AMT gets. I don't want the kind of situation we have when folks call the water company and somebody is snapping their gum and they're answering down in Alton, Illinois, and they have no idea where Bryan Street is versus Wilson Street. It's important to me that we have that kind of tutorial provided so that these people are up and running and able to do this intelligently if the council decides to approve it. So I would just ask for that to be brought back.
We could certainly do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm seeing no additional lights on the deferral, so the motion on the floor is for a 2-week deferral. Made by Councilmember Ali, seconded by Councilmember Jensen. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Riggenbach.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
21-107 is a request to approve a first phase pre-development agreement with Peoria Citizens Committee for Economic Opportunity Incorporated in the amount of $290,000 for the MacArthur Corridor.
Councilmember Moore.
Mayor, I would like to have this Director Black give us some details about this agreement before we move forward.
Thank you, Councilwoman. As the council will recall, there were funds allocated over the last couple of years for the development of the MacArthur Corridor that came as a result of a planning effort that was concluded there and adopted by the City Council as an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan. Development obviously is very complex, and there's a lot of what we typically call pre-development items that need to be in place in order to make the actual development go much smoother. This agreement is with PCCO to do the majority of the pre-development work so that the actual improvement work and construction work can come out of the ground as rapidly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Director Black. What you see before you is the compilation of several studies that have been done over the last few years. You may recall that in 2015, we had NRN come before us. We paid for that study, and the study revealed what we already knew, that we have a severe lack of infrastructure in the First District, and particularly in the South Side. After that study was done, there was a lot of discussion in the community about NRN and how to move forward. A few years later, IDG came before us with architects who were African American and Hispanic. out of the Texas A&M, HBCU, and they provided us with a South Village revitalization program. And part of that revitalization program was the MacArthur Corridor Comprehensive Plan and the South Village Implementation Plan. On the heels of that, you may recall this 200-page document, which is the consolidated plan for that the City Council approved. So we've approved the consolidated plan, which included a lot of the information that we've discussed. We accepted the IDG plan for how we were going to move forward, and we also accepted, this council accepted the NRN report. With the South Village Revitalization Program, I came before you with a request to set aside $1 million out of the South Village TIF in order to move this project along, and that was in 2019. It was probably about late summer 2019 when this council approved the $1 million to be set aside. Within that time frame, we also had the National League of Cities, a white paper that I was part of, Washington, D.C., called City of Peoria and asked me to come in and represent the City of Peoria, and I was the only person from the state of Illinois invited to this confab. And out of that came this white paper about affordable housing. And they even highlighted the City of Peoria in that document. And so today, after plans and plans and plans, and you talk to anybody in any part of this city, but specifically on the south side and North Valley, they'll tell you we are planned out. And every time we get a plan, we have a consultant come in, we don't do anything. We do these things and we sit them on a shelf. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent on all of these plans. Well, the community gave us our walking papers with the IDG. The community gave us our walking papers with NRN, and the community gave us our walking papers with Consolidated Plan. And the reason I say that the community gave us our walking papers was because the community was involved in every single one of these. Every plan that we have here listed neighborhood organizations that were visited by all of these groups ad nauseum. I mean, it's so much that they can tell you what's going to be in the plan because they've been surveyed so many times. They're sick of being surveyed. And so at this point, we're actually going to do something with a plan. We're actually going to start something. And so there was some confusion by some earlier in last week, I think it was, or this week, that these funds were going toward another plan. No. This is an implementation of all of the plans that you all have accepted here at the City Council. This is an implementation, pulling out some of those funds that you have reserved already. 2 years ago in 2019, you reserved $1 million for implementation. 2020, we thought we're going to hit the ground running, we're going to start doing this, and guess what happened? Who showed up? Our friend COVID-19. And so as a result, everything as we did throughout the city kind of scaled back, but now we're ready to move forward. To move forward, we have PCCEO. I think most of you are familiar with PCCEO. You're familiar with the fact that they've already built in this city, and particularly on the south side, more than 175 houses. They've built the Spring Grove subdivision. You may be familiar with Okwara 1 and 2. That's where the majority of the houses are, 167 of those. We've got about 41 houses in the Spring Grove subdivision. Most recently, you heard about them as a developer on Barron's. You remember the Barron's property. That was PCCEO. So the executive director, McFarland Bragg, is here if you had any questions of him later on. But suffice it to say, they come highly qualified. This council and the city has relied on PCCEO on a number of occasions for many, many things in our city, especially when it came to the south side. And once again, they have stepped up to the plate to say they will lead the development of this project. Those of you who are familiar with developmental agreements, when you see that development agreement in this packet, you will see that it looks just like every other development agreement you've seen before us. All the elements are exactly what you've seen. Director Black, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the elements are, there's no ups, no extras, no surprises. So tonight, I would ask your approval of the $290,000 to get this plan off the shelf, and it's just the beginning. Anyone who has done any development know you've got to figure out where to start, and that's what PCCO is going to be doing with the help of other businesses and organizations. They are an organization that focuses on local to as much degree as possible, focusing on local, and that's what we've been talking about around this horseshoe for at least 8 years that I've been here. So with that, I would ask for your approval of this development agreement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seconded by Councilmember Ruckriegel. Additional discussion on this item? Councilmember Ali?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Artis. I just want to commend you, Councilwoman Moore, on all your work on this development. It's very valuable to our community. It's going to be part of your legacy. It's developing an area of our community that has been disinvested for a long, long time, and it's a beautiful thing. PCCEO is very capable. I commend Mr. Bragg for all the work that you've done in developing this area. Very capable, strong organization that's been around for many, many years, I think over 50 years in our community. So I just want to say congratulations. I certainly support this. I think this is going to be great for our community.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I have Councilmember Regenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, Councilwoman Ali's comments summarized what I was going to say, so nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Regenbach.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
21-108 is a request to adopt an inducement resolution related to a potential tax increment financing district generally bounded by War Memorial Drive, University Street, Florence Avenue, and Parrish Avenue.
Councilmember Grabb.
Director Black, could you please outline the contours of this proposal?
Thank you, Councilman. As the council will recall, you authorized a TIF study for this general area, the southeast corner of University and War Memorial Drive, several meetings ago. And then you also authorized the special use for the site plan related to a financial services facility on that location. This inducement resolution is effectively a device in which the city is able to be reimbursed for any of the TIF-related costs in the development of a plan, and that it also allows for potential developers to effectively hold their place in the event that the TIF is approved and that there is a redevelopment agreement with that developer. I really want to emphasize those last 2 points. There's nothing in this that obligates the city council to either approve the TIF, which has yet to come before you because it's still under development, it's very much in early days, and there's nothing in this that obligates you to enter into an agreement with any developer, regardless of what they may bring to you. This basically just allows, it's a holding place, if nothing else, that allows for some semblance of a surety that there may be the opportunity to be reimbursed for TIF eligible costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. So there's the potential for a TIF in this area, but this will simply allow us, if we so choose, to implement a TIF for this particular parcel of land. It will allow us to go forward and will make things more palatable for any prospective developer of this parcel. Is that basically what I'm hearing?
That is correct, Councilman. It basically says to any potential developer that they can move forward with, say, site work or any other work on this particular location at their own risk. But they do have, assuming a positive vote by the City Council, they do have this resolution from the City Council indicating that if the TIF is established, then the city would be open to negotiating a redevelopment agreement with that particular developer.
Thank you very much. I'd move to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve, seconded Councilmember Euler. Any additional questions on this item? I'm seeing none. I'm seeing one. Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Black, what is your best guess on when we will be voting on the TIF itself?
Councilman, in conversations with the contractor, at this point, I think we would be looking at late May or early June at the earliest for the document to come back before the City Council.
Is it, thank you, is it important at this point in time for the developers to take the risk of starting to move a lot of dirt around? Or would it be prudent for them to wait until we pass this or don't pass it?
That would really be a decision that the developer would need to make, how confident they were in moving forward. I would also remind council that this inducement resolution does allow the city to be reimbursed for our costs in the hiring of the consultant to put the TIF together, assuming, again, that the City Council eventually approves the TIF.
Okay, it just seems to me that there's a little cart before the horse, and maybe this is normal. It seems like once the thing is passed, then everybody can start moving. Before it's passed, it seems that it's not prudent to do so. I guess the people who own the property can do what they want with it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Director.
Any additional questions on this item? We have a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
21-109 is a communication from Councilmember Montalongo to adopt a resolution establishing the Central Retail District.
Councilmember Montalongo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very proud to be bringing this resolution forward. I've had plenty of discussion with the Westlake Shopping Center, Northwoods Mall, and Glen Hollow Shopping Center. And over the years, several of the other businesses in that area, together they have come up with a name that they want to the community to refer them to, and that name is the Central Retail District. And that's what this is really bringing forward, just a naming for that area as a Central Retail District. So with that, I'd like to move for approval.
Motion to approve, seconded Councilman Kelly. Discussion on this item. Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Councilman Riggenbach?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
21-098 is a request to approve an ordinance establishing and regulating raffles and poker runs, and there is a handout on your desk, raffle license fee scale from the county clerk's office.
Okay. I don't know if Corporation Counsel had anything to add since we did this in first reading or not. Mr. Torren?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, we appreciate your time. We're here today to request the approval of an ordinance that would establish and regulate raffles and poker runs within the city of Peoria. Generally speaking, under Illinois law, gambling and other games of chance are illegal unless specifically allowed by the criminal code or another state law. Here, Illinois passed the Raffles and Poker Runs Act, which authorizes limited raffle and poker run events. However, in order for a municipality to license any of these games of chance, they must first enact a ordinance setting a floor or a certain set of minimum regulations to ensure that these games of chance are compliant with state law. Our proposed ordinance, would limit these licenses to bona fide benevolent organizations. We're talking religious, charitable, veterans organizations, educational, all of which are defined within the ordinance, and all of these organizations must be nonprofit. They also must have existed for at least 5 years to ensure that they are an established organization within the city, and there are regulations regarding how proceeds may be distributed, as well as how records must be maintained. There are also regulations regarding how these events are to be managed and operated. They must be managed and operated by bona fide members of the organization applying for the license. And in the case of raffles, a fidelity bond must be obtained. In the case of raffles for license fees, if an organization has less than $10,000 in gross sales related to the sale of raffle tickets, there is no license fee for that raffle. If an organization is making more than $10,000 in gross annual sales related to raffles, it is a $20 charge for that license. For poker runs, it's $20 per event. We would request your approval on this ordinance establishing these games of chance within the city of Peoria.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Toren or other staff? Councilmember Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Council, you indicated something to the effect that an organization has to be in existence for 5 years. Is that what I heard?
That's correct.
Is that a city requirement or a state requirement?
That's a state requirement.
State requirement? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Sear?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What is the current rules that we have right now? I'm thinking about the big raffles we have in town, Bradley, St. Jude, Easter Sales. What are the current rules?
So currently, there's the ability for other municipalities to license games of chance outside of their municipal boundaries. Illinois state law recently allowed that, and so I believe that here currently they're not operating under the Illinois Raffles and Poker Run Act. There may be alternative schemes, or they may be licensed by a separate municipal entity. But at this time, the city of Peoria cannot issue any raffle or poker run licenses without this regulatory scheme in place.
Now for current raffles?
Currently not to the city of Peoria, no.
Okay. If you have a large corporation that has a home office outside, let's say the city of Peoria or outside the state, how would you handle that?
So currently under state law, it'll all depend on the exact entity that's applying for the license, but it's got to be a benevolent organization, so it shouldn't be any sort of large corporation unless it does fit within the definitions of being religious, charitable, labor, veterans type, and there are specific definitions within the ordinance to control and ensure that these are bona fide benevolent groups. So certainly it is challenging when other municipalities can regulate games of chance outside their boundaries, but I think it's important for the city of Peoria to be able to offer these games of chance to local benevolent organizations which would like to raise money for their causes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Just to clarify what Assistant Corporation Counsel Torrance said, currently if someone is doing that in the city, they're paying the county to go to pay for that license. So that's where they're going instead of here.
Okay, thank you. I had Councilmember Kelly next.
I would applaud, I suppose, the manager and the staff for making our fee schedule very, very reasonable, very, very accessible. You all have this on your desk. This is the county's fee schedule, 4 pages long, for raffles for not-for-profit organizations. Now they'll be able to come to the city. It's going to be very easy. It's going to be very cheap. They can go ahead and have their raffle, raise money for their cause. And so I would, at this point, move to approve this resolution.
Motion to approve, seconded, Councilmember Moore. Additional discussion, Councilmember Ali.
Thank you, Mayor Artis. Just a question, Council, on page 5. It's C3. And, I'm sure some of this language is the same language that the council has, and maybe it's in the state code. But this is under licensee qualifications, and the requirement says that the following are ineligible for any license under this article: any person who is not of good moral character. So how do you prove that? I mean, why is that there? How do you, can you explain that?
So we are following a lot of these regulatory schemes that have been enacted by other municipalities, other counties. Certainly, I think the state includes this type of language just to ensure that the individual applicant, the organization that's applying, is indeed a bona fide organization that is of good reputation, and it allows the municipality the ability to ensure that they have a certain degree of control over how these licenses are issued. I think it's certainly a regulation or a limitation that may not come up very often and may never ultimately be enforced, but I think it is certainly one that the municipality perhaps wants in case there are unique situations.
Any language relative to non-discrimination?
I don't believe there's any specific language in there. It's something we could certainly take back and look at revising if that's something you would like us to.
Recommendation that I would have, I think that whenever we have the language like a person needs to be of good character, we should also have language that says that there's non-discrimination in terms of determining whether someone's eligible for a licensee.
Certainly.
Additional discussion on this item, Councilman Kelly.
Thank you. Just on those points, Council, is a person eligible, even though that person is not a not-for-profit or whatever?
So technically, it is an organization that's applying. In the cases of, say, a raffle, you are identifying a raffle manager. But in this case, it's an organization that should be applying. It's a benevolent organization.
So in this case, person really means organization?
There shouldn't be a case where there's an individual. It should be an organization.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm seeing no further lights. If that be the case, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. Councilman Riggenbach?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
21-110 is a request to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Code of the City of Peoria pertaining to the establishment of the City of Peoria Land Bank. There is a handout that makes this item a first reading.
Okay, so just for the public notice, there had been quite a bit of discussion on whether this would be acted on or whether it would be a first reading, and it has been established that this will be a first reading only, and it will come back on the next regular business agenda in 2 weeks.
Doolin to come to the microphone and talk about this item.
Thank you. Mr. Doolin?
Actually, Mayor, Mr. Manager, I'm going to give a quick overview, and then I'm going to give the privilege to Assistant Director Doolin to answer any questions. So basically, land banks, just kind of as an overview, have been very successful in other states, primarily in Michigan and Ohio. They typically work in cities where the real estate market is not working in the way that you would expect it to work in parts of the city. In other words, there's a weak real estate market. Properties are not selling. Properties are not being fixed up by the property owners because there's really no profit incentive to do so. You also find land banks in areas where houses are deteriorating to the point where the only option with them is demolition. And land banks have been successful at sort of shortening that cycle so that they don't end up in a situation where they have to be demolished, and they can perhaps be obtained and then renovated for further use. And then finally, land banks have been found in situations where existing city staff or county staff in some cases simply don't have the capacity because of staff constraints to really focus on what to do on a comprehensive level with hundreds or thousands of vacant lots and dozens or hundreds of vacant houses. Where this really came from was a partnership that we established several years ago with the Illinois Housing Development Authority, IDA, and with the Illinois Attorney General's office. We've been very successful in working in partnership with both of these organizations. They've provided the city with funding for different activities, and they actually approached us because of the success that they've seen here in Peoria, and offered us additional funds to try and establish what would be the first city-managed land bank in the state of Illinois. So in total, there's $300,000 available for this pilot program. It'll be about an 18-month long program to get the land bank off the ground and to see what difference we can make in the community over that time. One of the things that makes this intriguing is that Illinois is really just opening up now to the concept of land banks, although they've been in place in other states for years and decades in some cases. Illinois state law has been somewhat quiet on the establishment of land banks. So that is really changing, and we're hopeful that we can move forward with council approval in a couple of weeks and get this off the ground and show the other communities in the state of Illinois and in the Midwest what a well-run land bank in Illinois can look like. Thank you.
Were we going to hear from Director Doolin too, or was that it?
I'm sorry, Mayor. That was it.
Okay.
Assistant Director Doolin is here to answer any questions.
Okay. I thought you had mentioned you were going to give him a privilege of following you. You just meant he was going to be here for questions.
He has the privilege of answering the questions.
Very good. That's the way it should be. I have Councilwoman Moore and then Councilman Sear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am very happy to see this come forward. It was back in summer of 2012 when I was never even considering running for city council, when I was on a city committee led by then council member Chuck Weaver, when we were talking about land banks, and Joe Doolin was there in full effect. And the problem back then was the state of Illinois had very little guidance about land banking. And it seems that, and talking to Joe earlier today, so goes Chicago, so goes the rest of the state. So they have really started leading the way in the land banking. And if you would indulge me one moment, I want to read you from the communication that came before then the council members at that time. This communication was a request for council action, and it's dated October the 9th, 2012. And the item that I want to read to you talks about why this item was coming forward, and it was a rationale for why there was a city land manager that was needed. And I'll just read you one of the 3 bullet points that's on here. And it reads, currently, the management of city-owned land is distributed among several city employees in various departments. This arrangement is at best reactive and provides for little strategic planning in terms of land assembly and potential use. As no one person within the city's organization is charged with the primary duty of land management, the task is secondary to other duties and responsibilities of the various employees involved in the overall process. So that was from October of 2012. And if, me having this suggests to you that I'm a pack rat and my office at home is a fire trap, then you're right, because I keep documents. And so having said that and read that information from mid-2012, here we are, 2021. Those who are listening to us talk about this now, this is a lesson about how slow government works sometimes. But you have to keep putting in the work to get to where you want to be. And I think today we are where we need to be so that we can bring on someone who is full-time in this space, because even back in 2012, we realized that the south side of Peoria would be the primary beneficiary of this type of process. And then here we are as I exit the council, hoping that you would approve this amendment, this first reading, and then come back the next time and approve it so that we can start in earnest assembling properties. We've already been doing that unofficially because it was not really legal in the state. But unofficially, that's what we've been doing. We've been assembling properties along the south side and some parts of the North Valley with our strategic demolition. And so sometimes, you will see a whole area that was over a course of a year or two as funds came in, that area became, all the derelict homes were raised because that was our strategic plan to provide some semblance of assembly that now if you approve this, we can do it in earnest. So I would definitely, since it's the first reading, I like what I have here. I like what I see that we're doing. And Joe Doolin, if you can stick around for a few more years, maybe we can get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Councilmember Sear next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Doolin, I was on the IDA website this afternoon in preparation for a meeting tonight. Is this land bank the same thing as land bank capacity program?
Councilman, yes. Back in 2018, the city received $150,000 from IDA as part of that program. Initial funds of $50,000 were available for feasibility assistance to study this, and also technical assistance provided. And then if the city was to move forward with the land bank, the other $100,000 would become available. That is the $100,000 of the $300,000 that is indicated that would be available within the next few months if we move forward. The other $200,000 comes from a similar, the same pot of money, but not necessarily through the competitive grant program, just recognition of our work.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Doolin. I ran across a Q&A on the website with about 47 questions. I'm not going to bore my colleagues here tonight with 47 questions, but I will be calling you tomorrow and make an appointment, and so I can review a lot of these questions. Sound like a lot of great questions to me. Just not going to bore my colleagues tonight, but I'll be talking to you, and I'm glad this is the first reading, so we can ask a lot of questions. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You have Councilmember Riggenbach next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Black and Assistant Director Doolin for your continued leadership on this. And Councilwoman Moore, I was going to actually reference our former colleague, Chuck Weaver, as well, that this is something that I remember him championing years ago, and he's got to be smiling here if he's listening tonight to see that vision is becoming a reality. And I want to point out one thing, though, on page 2, the first full paragraph. It says, however, due to the strength and reputation of the Peoria Community Development Department as a leader in innovative solutions and best practices, IDA and the Illinois Attorney General's office proactively.
Councilman, if you can hear me, we can't hear you.
Did I just lose you guys?
Okay, now we can.
Oh,
Start
I'm
over.
on a roll too. I'm so sorry. On page 2 of the communication, it says, however, due to the strength and reputation of the Community Development Department as a leader in innovative solutions and best practices, IDA and the Illinois Attorney General Office proactively approached the city. And I think we need to recognize the people that make up our Community Development Department and give them a huge thank you for their continued strength and diligence in some extremely challenging times with the budget, with many things happening in the community, that they maintain that reputation, that IDA and the Illinois Attorney General recognize them as the people that they went to be the pilot on this. So I'm very excited after years of talking about this to see this coming before us. I'll be even more excited to see as we put a little more substance to this as to what it can actually look like. But I will definitely be supporting the establishment of a land bank. Thank you.
Okay. We have Councilmember Ali next.
Thank you, Mayor Artis. I'm very intrigued and excited about the concept of the land banking and commend the work of Director Black and Mr. Doolin. I think that most of the feedback that I've gotten from the community has to do with community engagement, community input into, this process. So I guess my question to Mr. Doolin is, since 2018, when IDA provided funding for this project, how much community engagement or community education, I would say, has been involved in this process, and then even in deciding in terms of the structure of the land bank itself?
Thank you, Councilwoman. I think that the direct public input, specifically related to the creation of the ordinance, I think it's important to keep in mind that the ordinance is the first step and actually a tool to address vacant, abandoned, and blighted buildings in our community. I would say that 99% of the work within the code enforcement and our neighborhood and grant staff is specifically focused on getting feedback on what we can do to reduce vacant, blighted, abandoned properties within the city of Peoria. So direct input specifically to this ordinance since 2018, I would say hasn't probably been there, and maybe should have. But I think that until we identified that we are going to bring this specific tool forward, that this is actually the first step in bringing that forward. I think that the important time for the public input is going to be specifically after we get the land manager hired and the board established, so the board and the land manager can directly hear the input from the citizens about what changes we need to make to our strategy and our processes specifically around those issues. But in talking to Councilman Jensen earlier today, in an acknowledgement that we want to try to get public input specifically on the ordinance language, I will be working to put together kind of a public meeting next week where people can kind of get an introduction to the land bank and our next steps, and have that before our next meeting.
What I was going to ask for, so thank you, Councilwoman Jensen and Mr. Doolin, for getting that process in order. Thanks.
Thank you. We have Councilmember Jensen next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Assistant Director Doolin and Director Black. I'm very excited about this proposal. As others around this horseshoe, I've been advocating that we explore and set up a land bank. I think at some point throughout the last 12 years that I've been on the council. So I'm very excited that we've persevered and that the state has recognized Director Black and Doolin and our department as being leaders in revitalization, and that the Attorney General has offered us this grant money to kind of be a pilot program. So thank you guys very much, and thank you, Assistant Director Doolin and Director Black and the City Manager for pulling this back and making it a first reading for contacting the Attorney General's office. I think I just lost my mic. There we go. To get an extension so that we can give at least some of the residents and stakeholders in these neighborhoods that this will impact the most an opportunity to give some input on this proposal. And I'm glad to hear that Mr. Doolan's going to put together a public meeting, and I hope that we can communicate other avenues for the public to submit their input regarding this plan. One question on this specific proposal that I do have, and I don't know if it's something I think that we should consider for the makeup of the Land Bank Board. It does note that a representative from neighborhood interests will be included. I'd like to make sure that's a resident, not just a representative. So a resident of one of the neighborhoods where the land bank will primarily impact the area. And since I think this is really going to be primarily focused on the south side and maybe the near north side, if we could consider maybe having two representatives from the two different areas that may be impacted. I know that's some input that I've received from residents in these neighborhoods that are supportive of the program, but that might be something worth considering. And I think that may be the only other question I have at this time. So again, thank you for bringing this forward, and I'm very excited to see it move forward.
Okay, we have Councilman Kelly next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Manager, for changing our agenda to making this a first reading rather than something we have to decide on this evening. I think I understand fairly well the structure, most of which I think is dictated by state law. Is that correct, Manager?
Well, there's a construct here that's based upon working within the state law, but there is still some room for us to make adjustments to the ordinance overall.
Yes. So we've done, I think, a very good job of setting up a structure. However, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting, and I'm just I'm very happy we've got 2 weeks to go through this, because I think while the intentions are very good, the intentions are unassailable. We've had a lot of programs especially to serve our more challenged neighborhoods whose intentions are assailable, but they didn't work. But we have managed to create a little bit more bureaucracy along the way. So I'm going to use this 2 weeks to try to figure out and talk with other people and talk with other cities and our staff, which I've already done some of, to find out just how is this going to make things better, or how is it that this is going to do things that we can't already do today, that we're just not funding today. To me, these are the questions I'm going to be going after for the next 2 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We have Councilmember Ruckriegel next.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for all the people that have had touched this and worked on this. Thank you for Assistant Director Joe Doolan for your work, especially last night. I know you were answering quite a few of our questions going into today's meeting. And extremely supportive of this. I mean, my years of being on council and even prior, this is one of the things that the residents really have been asking for, because what the land bank allows us to do is really to work within a strategy. If you think with what we're doing now, with all of our good intentions, is supplying the need that we need, then let's keep on doing exactly what we're doing. But I think the residents for years have been asking about land banking. I think when Councilmember Weaver was here, he brought this up, and he got that conversation going among the residents, among the neighborhoods, and they got very excited to learn more about it. And they've always made sure that we've never forgotten the idea of land banking, which is really held up by entities not within this community, but outside this community. That being said, City Manager, what I'm understanding here is while we have designees from the county treasurer's office, because we're going to be working together, approval really is able to be done here at the council. Once we would approve this, then we would be able to go. We don't have to send this over to other chambers anywhere else, correct?
That is correct.
And I think what this does allow to is for us to really be a little bit more, and I hate to use the word again, but strategic in what we're doing. Because right now it's sort of every piece of property up for itself, and it's very hard to have those conversations. This allows this to be a really productive, tangible change within our community. Excited to see this come forward, excited to see actually the education that we'll have over the next couple of weeks. And Assistant Director Joe Doolin, can you talk a little bit about the transaction amounts there and why these were put into place as they were within this document?
Yes, sir. So if you look in the council communication in the ordinance, it says that essentially the structure is created, and just to rewind a little bit, Councilman Kelly's question about the structure and where this ordinance came from is we modeled it a lot off of the various other land banks, whether that's Cook County or the Winnebago Land County within Illinois, but obviously tweaking it because it's going to be a City of Peoria ran land bank. So that's where a lot of the language came from. We specifically included the city manager as the chairperson based on some of those models. And with that, we put the transaction amount of less than $15,000 at the discretion of the city manager. Essentially, that's, and Mr. Manager, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the authority granted currently to the city manager. And what we exercise with the land banking activities that our department currently do, whether that's side lot transfers or when we declare properties abandoned within the city of Peoria. To Councilman Moore's point earlier, we do land banking activities within our department now. The change that this makes is to specifically bring back the land manager position that we traditionally had. If you remember back throughout the years, Susan Schloop did it for us on a part-time basis, and then Eric Setter took over that role. Unfortunately, back in 2018, we lost those positions and lost some of that momentum that was occurring. I think one of the best examples of the success that both of those individuals did that we will really see over the next few years is the success of the Tabor property. That was one of the first kind of land banking activities we really undertook and acquiring those properties. And because of that, this year, through those strategies in that time, we're receiving state grants to hopefully transform those properties. So I wanted to get both of those things to answer some other context of the discussion so far. So within studying those other land banks, we established the $15,000 mark at the discretion of the city manager. Then just in consultation with our technical assistants, we kind of found 15 to 50,000 as that middle ground where a single family house, if we do obtain it through an abandoned property process quickly, after the 2 years before it needs demolished, would likely fall into that structure. And having that board approval, we can quickly get it into the hands of the private sector. Then obviously anything over 50,000, we felt the need to come to the whole council because it's a very large transaction, and we should get the entire body involved in that.
Great. Thank you for that information. In getting ready for today's meeting, I've had several phone calls and had several conversations with people who were both inquisitive about this, but also some who were very much of support and have been for years. And in one of the conversations, it really came up and hit home that looking across the country at where these have worked, it's where there has been a dedication of the committee to be able to perform the strategy that the community has, and also from the hard work. The ordinance itself will not change anything. It's the work that goes into it and the many hours. Earlier today, we saw an action item that came forward, and we're taking a step on MacArthur. This is another thing that we can do, another tool in our belt, in which if we put in the time and the work, we can make a change within our city. So very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this first reading? If not, we would accept a motion to receive and file. Councilmember Jensen, seconded Councilman Noeller. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Riggenbach.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Before we go to the next item, we have Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to request that we reconsider item 21-107. That was the redevelopment agreement that it consisted of Peoria PCCEO. The reason for the reconsideration is I am on their board and should not have voted. And so I would like to reconsider that and then recall the vote.
Okay.
Someone else making the motion. So I can.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to reconsider, seconded by Councilman Euler. So this is just a vote to reconsider. Next step will be a motion to approve. Please cast your ballots. You're going to, okay. Second, we have the motion and a second. Councilman Riggenbach.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. And now we have a motion by Councilmember Ali. Okay, motion by Councilmember Ali, seconded by Councilmember Jensen for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Councilman Riggenbach.
Aye.
The motion passes with 10 ayes, no nays, 1 abstention. Councilmember Moore. Madam Clerk.
We're at unfinished business. 21-075 is a request to concur with the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to approve a resolution amending resolution number 03-444 as amended to remove the access restriction to Jamestown Road for Williamsburg Oaks Townhouses, a multifamily residential development located at 3310 to 3408 West King James Road and 6502 to 6510 North Queen Francis Lane.
Councilman Montalongo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item was up for discussion at our second meeting in March. By the request of Councilman Sear, we had another public meeting via Zoom. At that meeting, we didn't have, I don't think, many questions from the community. With that, I would like to move for approval.
Okay, motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Sear. Additional discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Councilman Riggenbach.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
If there's no further unfinished business,
Unfinished, Councilman Riggenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our last council meeting, we were presented with a proposed resolution from a local resident, Lawrence Marchard, asking us to go on record of encouraging the governor to reinstate the utility disconnection moratorium that had been in place but has now been allowed to expire. So I spoke with Mayor-elect Ali, and we had Corporation Counsel and Assistant Director Doolin work on this. And obviously I'm not there, but I believe there in front of you is a sample resolution encouraging the governor to reinstate that moratorium. So I don't know if this is, I should have double checked this with Corporation Counsel, if this is something that can actually be voted on tonight, or is this just a request to put on the agenda for next week?
We'll put this on the next agenda. It has to be publicly noticed, Councilman.
That's what I thought. So that would be my request, and that's what's in front of you tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other new unfinished business before we go to new business? Unfinished? Councilman Gribb?
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask our superintendent of police to bring back some information concerning the legality of motorized vehicles, which we're seeing in increasing numbers throughout our city, at our next meeting, in concert with our legal department. I know my constituents would appreciate a report back on where we stand with that and what kind of enforcement action can be taken, not only for the motorized vehicle, but also for loud noise coming from them. If we could have that at the next meeting, that would be great. And also, Mayor Ardis and Council, as all of you know, normally during the month of June, the Moss Bradley Residential Association has its annual sale, and it is something that we've come to look forward to. There are vendors that come from all over to participate, from roughly University Street down to almost Western. But because of the coronavirus, in concert with the Illinois Department of Public Health and our city administration, the decision was made to postpone having that Moss Bradley sale until the 11th of September of this year, barring any unforeseen developments with the COVID virus or its variants. That will be the new date, and it will be from 8 to 3, 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon on Saturday, September 11. Vendor applications will be going out this week. And also, because it is September 11, we would like to have a remembrance ceremony at Tricorn Park that morning, and we will be giving more details about that and how it will happen as we get closer to that date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Unfinished. Anything unfinished, Madam Clerk?
We're at new business.
New business to come before the council. New business, Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to follow up on the Peoria Cares AMT discussion we had earlier. Mr. Manager, do we have many instances of getting services from vendors in our vendors from anywhere over a long period of time where we don't have a contract?
I can certainly go back and talk with purchasing and get you an answer on that. So, but there may be instances where we've had agreements in place where we don't have a contract in place. But certainly from the direction we had this evening, we'll be coming back to you with a contract.
Yeah, I don't know. It would make me more comfortable, and that doesn't necessarily mean it has to happen, but it seems to me that both sides then know what to expect from one another, got some sort of dispute resolution, you know, all that stuff is written and signed off on, and it seems to me that $75,000 isn't all the money in the world, but this is a long-term situation, and it seems to me we ought to have some things in writing. So thank you.
Any other new business this evening? New business?
Mayor.
Councilman Riggenbach?
Thank you. I would just like to publicly thank Polly Wagner, 3rd District resident and master gardener from U of I, for her continued work at the corner of War Memorial and Knoxville. The tulips are in full bloom right now, so I'm sure a lot of you have driven by there and looked in awe at the beauty of it, but just know that doesn't happen by chance, and we want to thank Polly publicly for all her continued work on that corner. And also, I know next week will be the installation of the new council, and we'll have our chance to say goodbye. But Mayor Ardis, I just have to say, this is heartbreaking for me to end our 12-year run of Tuesday nights together, doing it virtually on the telephone. So I just want to say tonight that I wish I was there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other new business? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
We're at citizens' opportunity to address the city council, and I have not received any emails requesting comments, so.
Okay. We have two live in person. Up first is Lavetta Ricca.
Before, this old body has forsaken me, but my mouth still goes good. Lavetta Ricca, 711 South Green Lawn, president of Old Town South Neighborhood Association. First of all, I want to tell you I hate goodbyes. And tonight is goodbye night. You know, my dad always told me that when the good Lord created us, He put our heart too close to our tear ducts. So I'm going to try not to do that tonight, but I can't guarantee it. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Monalongo and Beth. Thank you so much for your service to the city. And since Denise Moore is my council person, I have special thank yous for her. All the work she's done for us in my council district. Tonight's an example of some of it. She's worked hard for us, and I really appreciate what you've done for us, Denise. And then 22 years ago, as a neighborhood advocate, I became introduced to a young man who I attended hundreds and hundreds of meetings over that time. At that time, he was Councilman Jim Artist, who is now Mayor Jim Artist. He's given 22 years of his life, think about that, to this city, to make this city a wonderful city to live in. I appreciate everything he's done for us. I love my city, and I love my mayors. And I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart what you've done for this city. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lavetta. While you're making your way back to your chair, I know I can speak on behalf of the entire council and telling you how much we appreciate your advocacy and how much you love this community too. Thank you. We have Lawrence Michard next.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to Councilman Riggenbach for bringing up the resolution. The utility shutoffs has pandemic risk at this time. And we understand that we have to go through this process, and we appreciate that it's been being dealt with as soon as possible. It's very important. I just want to add a few points that even though the governor is bracing for the impact of utility shutoffs by virtue of an executive order that he just did a couple days ago, but it only covers $1,000 for 80,000 households when the Attorney General has stated that there are 10 times that, 800,000 households in Illinois at risk of utility shutoffs. Just last night, the Bloomington City Council passed the resolution that's before you that I'm making reference to, they passed that unanimously in recognition that more needed to be done. So again, we're not an outlier. We are going in with other cities that are very aware of the urgent need to prevent utility shutoffs during this pandemic, especially in a place like Peoria, which is an outbreak hotspot. Last year, tomorrow marks the start of when our COVID case numbers will start to include that of households affected by utility shutoffs, the utility shutoffs that have started since the first of the month. And so we'll get those numbers in hard numbers starting tomorrow. Last year when this happened, we had over 2,000 COVID cases a day when we hit that point. Today, we had 2,556 cases, and the 7-day average of COVID cases has been over 2,000 for over a month. And just one more thing, I just want to say that these are extraordinary times. I appreciate the fact that it's being dealt with here. It doesn't cost the city anything to adopt this resolution. It's to put us on notice and to show to the governor to please urge him to put the moratorium back on for power, for water, for gas, that people aren't shut off, that people aren't forced then to double up and triple up and more into households. If that happens, the pandemic will spread like we just can't see right now. And we all know how much is affecting Peoria right now. Thank you very much.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
We do not have an executive session, so we are at adjournment.
Motion to adjourn, Councilman Sear, seconded by Councilman Euler. Seeing no discussion, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously. We'd like to thank Joe Deacon and his listening audience at WCBU as well as Cable Channel 22. And this evening's meeting is adjourned.